Hello and welcome, everybody. And this is going to be a really fun stream. We're excited. We have Preston Cardwell with us today, AI automation maven, and we're going to kick us off with some intros. So, Preston, why don't you go first, and then I'll follow up before we get into the actual quick program.
Yeah, I'm Preston. I am the founder of Memorial Ridge. I do AI and operations consulting, mostly for accounting firms and some other professional service companies. I'm a CPA. I spent 6 years in public accounting doing consulting, and got really interested in automation while I was working there, and built a bunch of stuff for both our firm and some of the businesses we were working with. So kind of stayed interested in that space and been working on AI automation now for the last couple of years.
Thanks. Yeah, this is awesome. And I think Preston, you also work a lot with professional service firms, specifically a lot in the CPA space because you were a CPA, you are a CPA. So
Yeah.
how's that been going for you?
Yeah, it's been good. I think it's interesting to see kind of really in the last like year from my side at least, like how many firms are interested in learning about this stuff, not just like building an or, bringing me in to build an automation, but actually like learning how it's working, training their teams on how to use AI tools, and things like that. So yeah, it's going great, and I think a lot of CPA firms. I mean, this is the way of the future. So
It is. It's coming full circle here in 2025 as well. So we'll be talking about that today. I'm Sean McLean. I'm the founder of Low High Advisors. Get my logo popped up right here. So we're a fractional advisory firm that also focus on AI and automation for both tech companies as well as professional services, with a focus in the CPA space as well. So we are going to be mentioning a lot of things that are going to be important to CPA firms today, but this applies to really all small and scaling businesses, because we're all kind of in that same boat that technology has been moving quickly, and that as a CIO slash CDO slash you name the X, I do a lot of the technology strategic work for companies. People want to make sure that they are using the best platform for automation and agentic workflow right now. And that is going to be a big part of our topic today. The cool thing, too, is that you need to stay watching this live stream and put in questions, because once we get past a little bit of this definition of the two platforms, Preston's going to give a demo of both. And we're going to talk about the pros and cons that are really a key part of making your decision. And he's going to be able to show you live. So make sure you are sticking around. Again, this will be recorded. It will be on LinkedIn. It will be on our YouTube. So you'll be able to get access to it if you have to leave. But put any comments or questions you have in the chat, and I'll be monitoring that as well. So, Preston, any other final thoughts before we kick into the quick little deck here?
No, I think we're good.
All right, perfect. So I'm going to share my screen first, and we're going to have a quick little deck, not too robust, because we want to really get to the meat of this meeting as quickly as possible. But these are the two platforms that we're discussing today. And as most of you know, OpenAI launched Agentic, and it was a bit of a surprise. A lot of us had been hoping or waiting that OpenAI might jump into this arena, especially after they had announced the agent mode in ChatGPT, and being able to then have the browser was also announced last week with Atlas browser. So they're moving a lot into the automation space. So this announcement of Agentic was something that I know Preston and I were really interested to see what would be the pros and cons. And so that's why we wanted to get this live stream up as quickly as possible with the comparison. And most of us, including Preston, are using n8n as our primary platform, but there's a lot of different reasons why. So the long and short of it, if you haven't used n8n yet, is it's an open source automation platform, and that's automation first. It doesn't require to use AI nodes in their workflows, but it can do very nice visual different types of workflows. So that's where we call this AI orchestration or workflow orchestration is really key in the n8n. build has over 1,200 integrations that are native, and you can self-host it or use their cloud version, which we'll get into a little bit more in the next slide. But the other comparative piece with Agentic, as you can see, there's 3 parts, which are Agent Builder, Chat Kit, and evals. So the developer toolkit is really that. It's targeted towards developers, but everybody has access to it nicely. That was a little confusing at the beginning where they said, oh, it's going to be live in maybe just a couple of the different SKUs. But yeah, if you have an OpenAI account that's paid, you're going to be able to get in and start playing around with this. So the agent builder plus the chat kit, and then plus using things like Zapier or Microsoft or similar MCP servers can also evolve those types of integrations. But there, we'll talk a little bit more about how there's only certain native integrations. But it's really great because it's on the OpenAI platform, it's native, and it has some really good capabilities across the board for AI prototyping. So to dig a little bit deeper into the pros and cons comparatively, we have, again, lots of different apps. And as Preston, I want you to speak a little bit right here on the community aspect of n8n, right? That is a critical aspect that has a big part. And I think OpenAI is moving in that direction, but speak a little bit about the community with n8n that you found.
Yeah, so I mean, n8n has obviously been around for a little while now. So they have lots of community forums, which, you know, if you're a new builder on n8n, you're trying to figure things out, it's pretty helpful. Most people have probably asked the same question you would have. So those forums are super helpful. The other thing with the n8n community that is very cool is they have a lot of developers on within their community. And so whether you're on the cloud version or the self-hosted version, there are often developer nodes in n8n that allow you to use what someone else has built that n8n may not have natively built themselves. I will note, like, this is better on the self-hosted version because you obviously have access to grab things from GitHub and just use it on your own, you know, with your own volition. But like the cloud version as well, n8n typically takes developer nodes, reviews them, make sure there's, you know, there's nothing majorly wrong with them, and then we'll often post them so that, you know, regular people can use them as well. So I think the community aspect of n8n is very underrated. I think just one example of like a community node that someone built that I've even used. I think someone built a PandaDoc node. It's not, at least as of a couple months ago, maybe it is now, but at least as of a couple months ago, PandaDoc, which is a proposal tool, was not native to n8n. So, you know, obviously tons of people use it. Some developer went in and built it. Yeah, that's an example of like one thing that I have used. I think lots of other people have built really cool nodes in n8n as well. Some of them aren't even, you know, like connecting to software. Some of them are actual like custom code that do cool things. So yeah, that's a major aspect of n8n. Obviously, Agent Kit, brand new, not really a huge community at this point. So definitely a strength for n8n.
And you know, OpenAI kind of tried to adopt this, and they still are. Kind of started with their custom GPTs, where developers could either build a prompt template that turned into a GPT, or other specific code that was developed that turned into a GPT that then they could put on the platform, and users could then also adopt it. And then a lot of them, like I know the data analytics one just got moved right into the native platform. So I think both vendors have that mindset of like engaging with the community and being able to do it. But most of it is, the nice thing with n8n is most of it's being shared on GitHub. So a lot of that can be grabbed for free, and then you basically have the ability to customize it yourself. Whereas some of the stuff on OpenAI's store are slightly monetized, or you just have to kind of figure out what's going on. And there's a lot of optionality on both sides, but that's a big advantage, I think, for n8n as far as a pro, because yeah, the actual agent kit stuff is so new that there's not much that you can grab that's outside of the existing builds right now, the existing nodes. The other limitations that a lot of people point out, especially when I'm talking about that strategy of moving into n8n, is the self-maintenance. And if you are, we'll talk a little bit about data compliance in a sec, but if you are using a strategy focused on data residency, particularly say if you have a business that operates in Europe, and you have to really be aware of that compliance, that's where the self-hosting is basically a requirement. But you also have a lot of different maintenance and, you know, that kind of classic on-premise feel to run it. So as Preston and I both prefer, we do like the cloud hosted versions of this, and especially for small and scaling businesses, it might make a lot of sense to stick with that, even though the cost of the self-hosting is free. So we'll talk a little bit about the pricing here as well. The other aspect is that n8n is complex, and I think Preston can attest to that. It's not for the weak of heart. You're going to need to take some time to learn how to do things. Whereas I'd say a strength so far for those of us that are not developer friendly is that the OpenAI agent kit is very simplistic still, and it has a lot of constraints because of that simplicity. But you can actually build a prompt in ChatGPT or Claude or any of the models that then go and build these agents essentially for you. So that part is obviously very simple, and you can actually get up and running, but it will also immediately tell you where the constraints are, where the barriers are. So you'll find out really quickly that there's a lot more you can do on the n8n platform right now than you can do on AgentKit. And then the other other limitations that we like to talk about is that there's still kind of a cost barrier in the agent kit. There's not a lot of pure understanding about how the tokenization is fully working unless you are a very robust developer and you monitor that very tightly. But also the monitoring is not quite as easy. And Preston's going to showcase how you can monitor your tokens on n8n actually live as you're running the different workflows. There's also a perceived limitation on triggers and native connections through MCP, which are not native, but they're expanded connections. So that can also be a divisive topic that we'll get into a little bit as well. Next slide on the pricing really quick. Again, I mentioned the community / self-hosted edition is free, but you do have to then pay tokens through the workflows. And of course, anything that hits an AI model, you're paying tokens there. Cloud hosted starts at $20 a month. So again, for small businesses, both are really affordable to get started. It just, you do have that cost of time and money of learning how to use it, or paying a vendor like Preston to be able to come in and help you learn how to use it and also do it for you. The agent kit pricing is, way down to, a 10th or a 1,000th of a cent per 1,000 tokens. But as we'll see, one node could run 10,000 tokens easy in the different complexity that's moving through. So it is something that you want to monitor to get an idea of what your cost is going to be based on the different nodes in a workflow. And we'll see that visually. No platform fee as long as you are on the platform. And for a lot of smaller getting started costs, you won't really see an uptick in it. And it's so new that I think a lot of folks are still trying to figure out how to best monitor that. As we mentioned, you might need an extra dashboard to be able to make it happen. Now, on the compliance piece, one thing I want to also call out here that's not quite on this slide, but was a big part of the agent kit rollout, is they showed how you can build a evaluation node, and evaluations can be used to monitor the success and efficiency of a workflow, but you can also use it to build PII or data privacy like shredders or blockers, so that you basically build kind of a secure and compliant umbrella around your workflows, so that essentially if it's hitting your local databases, like an accounting database, and you don't want PII style data like an EIN or credit card numbers to flow out to a model, these types of nodes can essentially block that data from going out to the public models. So that's a critical understanding for a lot of us, because many IT vendors and internal teams have actually told different of my clients and probably a lot of our prospects and businesses that, well, you can only really trust, Microsoft Copilot, because that's all governance is dialed in, and we can, make sure Microsoft is going to work because we don't have to worry about our PII going out. It's actually happening across all these different workflow models now. So you can build those types of evaluation nodes in both n8n and the Agent Kit, which are great answers for small businesses. It's just you do have to know how to properly dial in that umbrella of different things. And I'll kick it over to you, Preston, too, really quick. Like, in your experience, has it been pretty just kind of like easy to build a node that can block PII, especially when you're working with a professional services organization that's worried about data privacy?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of like two pieces. One is whether it's n8n or Agent Kit or whatever other tool you're using. I think it's just knowing what the tools that you need to use to block that information. So n8n, obviously, it's secure. That's an important thing to note. I think, I mean, it's on the slide here. Hopefully it's obvious to most people, but you should trust n8n with your data as you would most other software applications that you're using in your tech stack. But understanding what data you can pass to an AI model is important. There's two pieces to that. One is like, what data am I giving to that AI model? So maybe I need to like pull out some of the data first. So that's piece number one. The second piece is understanding whether, whichever AI model you're using, understanding whether or not they train on that data, and what level of like account you have with them. Like if you have a business account with ChatGPT, for example, they don't train on any of your data. Right. Most of them at this point, most of the AI models at this point don't train on any of the API data, which is obviously what you're using if you're using a tool like n8n. So you should be secure from that standpoint, but obviously it's still important to understand that. So
very
yeah,
that's awesome. That's a great awareness. And I think for a lot of businesses, if somebody is telling you that there's still a major data privacy concern here, and obviously there's other concerns too, like hallucinations, all that stuff is getting dialed in by the models. And so there are ways to do the fact checking, the validations, the reviews. And really that's what we're talking about here, is like building smart agentic workflows that can do those checks for you so that you don't have to do it as much. You're still going to have to do it. You're still going to have to understand what you're presenting if it's a deliverable to a client, but these are the things that can help do that in such a more efficient manner. So it's really a big time to be able to look at this. And then last couple slides here really quick, because I want to get to the demo, is that there are a lot of examples of those use cases I just brought up to be able to make what work you do more efficient. It's, again, not replacing people. The human has to be in the loop. It's right there, on that second bullet with the n8n side. It's like you need to be able to have human eyes on these workflows, not just for cost and efficiency and security, but also, is it valid? Do you have these fact checker pieces really dialed in? You still need that ability. And all of that is just going to be much more robust when you're utilizing these types of agentic workflows. When we do throw in, multi-system orchestration, some of those key workflows that we all do is like, picture an employee onboarding process or a client onboarding process. It's going to have to seed all these different data sources. So in classic RPA, our businesses would have to have a scripting bot that would open up all of these like on a machine and do it. Now with these tools, it can actually do it all through API for the most part. But n8n also has the capability of doing some triggering and being able to actually work with RPA if you need to, like if you have legacy systems. Right now with OpenAI, you can't do any of that stuff. It's still, cloud and AI centric only. And the best use case right now, most people are really calling out for using Agent Builder, is for the chat capability. So if you do want to be able to have more of a chat interface in your organization and have tight workflows tied to it, This is a great example. There's other, types of platforms that I've used for chat interface. You can drop it right in Teams, right in Slack, right in whatever, using Google to be able to have that assistant capability. n8n can do a lot of that stuff too, but it's not their priority because they're so focused on massive workflows moving all around. So all in all, we are going to point to, and you'll see it kind of in the demo too, that right now, if you're planning your budget for 2026 and you have not chosen, maybe you've dabbled a little bit in, Power Automate and a couple other, automation platforms, but it's just not giving you the oomph you desire, even with as cool as Agent Kit looks, you're still going to want to spend some money and time investing in n8n or an n8n focused vendor, because it gives you all of these things. And n8n also just raised a Series C. So their platform is only going to get more robust, better, more security. They are SOC 2 Type 2. They have a lot more optionality, but they got 180 million in funding just a couple of weeks ago. That puts them at 2.8 billion. That is no joke. They have gone from a startup to a actual legit business automation platform. So I really would recommend that. And the other cool metric that I think Preston is going to be more aware of, and I had to actually look this up, is there's over 150,000 GitHub stars as of this month in 2025. That means that 150,000 developers have brought n8n repositories into their GitHub work area. So Preston, does that like turn the needle a little bit more, like of your move from like Make and Zapier and other things more into the n8n space?
Well, first of all, saying that Power Automate may not give people the oomph that they need is the nicest way I've ever heard anyone describe that. But yeah, no, n8n, I think, I mean, at least from my standpoint, it has probably the most traction in this space right now. I think the fact that there are 150,000 GitHub stars is, I mean, it's at the end of the day, like, it doesn't make that big of a deal for someone who's using the cloud version, but it just goes to show that a lot of, especially like developers, like this tool, which is pretty huge for these types of software, because if a developer is seeing efficiency using something like this, then you know that it has the technical capabilities to be able to do what you need as a non-developer. So I think that is a pretty big deal. But it also kind of goes to show what I was saying earlier about the community aspect. Like, people are building things with n8n, and if there are a ton of people building community nodes and putting them on GitHub, then that means there's more stuff for people like us to use cool tools that other people are building.
Oh, 100%. So with that, I'd love to turn the sharing over to Preston, and he's going to actually show us how these two platforms compare live with some demos that he has prepared. So Preston, the floor is yours.
Yeah, tell me if you can see my screen here. I tried to share.
Yes, we are good.
Okay. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to just show here, this is n8n, and I want to talk through, before we get into like the specifics here, I want to just talk through kind of the workflow that I was trying to build to compare these different tools. So, and this is a very basic workflow, so this may not be super applicable to anyone, but it's, I think, a good illustration of the different tools that you can use here. So in this case, what we're trying to do is we're saying a CPA firm is getting an email from a client asking a question about some tax related issue. And I think in my example, I used someone that was potentially buying an electric vehicle for their business, and they wanted to see if there were any incentives available to them. Dumb example, but we're gonna go with that one for the purposes of this demo here. So basically, I'm gonna show how you would build it in n8n as its own workflow, which is kind of what you see on the screen here. And then I'll quickly show like using n8n as an MCP server, which would be similar to using the Zapier MCP. And I'll kind of talk through that when we get there. And then lastly, we'll show Agent Builder or Agent Kit and kind of how this looks in there. And I'll kind of compare and contrast between them. So first off, this is n8n. This is a super simple workflow, so hopefully this will make sense for everyone. But what you typically have in n8n is you'll have a trigger, which means how does this workflow kick off? And so in this case, it is getting an email via Gmail. That's basically just the email that I said asking about the EV. And then it's sending the contents of that email to this AI agent. And so again, for those who aren't familiar with n8n, they have this very cool tool called an AI agent. Basically what it does is you hook it up to an AI model. So for example, ChatGPT, that's the brain of the agent. And then you have all of these different tools that you can connect to this agent. So in this case, I have 3 tools here, which I'll talk through in a second. But what it does is it allows your AI agent to grab data from specific places or perform actions or things like that. So what I'm showing here is this AI agent just accepts this content from the email. And then there's a really big prompt in here. I won't go through it, but basically this is how you would build an AI agent. You typically have like, what's its task, what tools are available to it. So I'm telling you what the tools are that are connected. I'll show you in a second. And then any specific rules. And then in this case, I'm also telling it the output format. So that's not super important for this demo, but just know when you build an AI agent, you obviously have to prompt it really well so that it understands what it is supposed to do and what tools it has access to. And so in this example, it actually grabs context from the business from a Google Doc. So this would be a Google Doc that basically just says, here's the business purpose, here's the services we provide, and any other relevant information about the business. And then it's also grabbing a Google Doc that is the writing style of the business. So like how they typically communicate with their clients or how they communicate via email, things like that. So the purpose of these are to tell the agent, like this is who you work for. This is how you write. And then this is an HTTP request, which is basically just connecting to Perplexity to the search API to go perform research on the web. And so what we're telling it is take this content from the email, figure out what you need to go search, and then use this to search the web for the answer to that. And when it does that, it's also going to grab some sources to cite. So all of this is all connected to the AI agent. And I'm going to go in here to an example that I ran. And you'll see that when you run an n8n workflow, it'll highlight green as each tool runs. And what I wanted to show here is just kind of the actual AI agent and everything that it's grabbing. So basically, when the agent finishes, you get to see here's all the output, which not important right now, but what it's doing is it's logging each step that it takes in n8n. And so you can see at first when it got the data, it called the ChatGPT GPT-5 mini model, which is the one that I had hooked up as its brain. And in this case, this is an interesting example of what you were highlighting earlier, Sean. Like you can kind of see in n8n how many tokens you're using for each step of this workflow. Mm-hmm. This will be, and I'll come back to this later, but this will be something that's worth comparing and contrasting with the Agent Kit tool as well, because it's not going to be as simple to see that, at least yet. Mm. So you can actually see in this case, the prompt that I sent was 1,700 tokens. The output that it gave me was 600. It decided it needed to go use the Perplexity tool. So it researched the web for whatever it decided it needed to search for. And then it sent that back to the AI model. It went and grabbed a business context. It went and grabbed writing style, and then basically sent all of that back to the AI model to say, here's everything that you need. Now perform the task at hand. And so the task that I gave it in this case was give me a few actual tasks to log in my task management system. So like if I'm the CPA firm, when someone sends me an email, I might need to go do that research. I might need to prepare a report. I might need to have partner review. I might need to send the email back to the client, respond within 48 hours. I don't know, whatever it is. The agent in this case is going to figure out which tasks the CPA firm needs to do. So that's one piece. And it's also going to prepare a draft email. So that's the other piece.
Mm-hmm.
So the output of this agent did both of those things. It decided in this case that it needed to be 4 tasks. So determine eligibility, estimate tax benefit. Not important for the purposes of what we're looking at in the demo, but just know, like, you train the AI agent to do certain things. This is the output that it's going to give you. And again, the research it conducted, and then the draft email response. And so all of that from like the perspective of an n8n workflow, like that's really useful information, but now what do we do with it? So like this agent gave us a bunch of stuff. Now I have some tasks that I need to put in my task management system. I have a draft email. How do I get that to be more useful to me than just sitting here in n8n?
Mm-hmm.
So this is where you connect it with other tools. So in this case, I actually just connected it with like a Notion database. So it split out those 4 tasks and it actually went and logged them in my Notion database. And then, this could be any other task management system. It could be in your practice management system, whatever, as long as it has an API that can hook up to n8n.
Yep.
And then the other piece is I sent it back to Gmail and I said, create a draft in my Gmail inbox with the draft response that you have. And so once this ran, we're not going to show it here on the demo because it's not that important, but once it ran both of those tools and logged everything into my system. And so then I would basically just go to my Gmail and I would see a draft email in there. I could review it, do whatever else I needed to do. Same thing with Notion. I could go review the tasks that I have, check them off, things like that.
Quick question to you, Preston. When you did have to set up this whole workflow in n8n, one other perceived con is that n8n doesn't have like a prompt interface that you could just basically be like, set up a task node to run into Notion and then let it do it for you, right? Like that would be more of an example of what you would have to pull something from GitHub if you see that node already available, or just build it yourself if it's more right out of your mind. And maybe speak a little bit about how each node can be created in the easiest path for users.
Yeah. So, I mean, at a high level, if you kind of know the workflow that you want to build in n8n, there are a lot of templates. Kind of going back to the community piece again, there's a lot of templates out there that you could grab and kind of use as a cheat code. So that's the first thing. They also released, I haven't used it a bunch because I know how to use n8n, but they released kind of their own version of what you're talking about, which basically you just use plain text to say like what you want to build, and n8n builds that in the canvas for you. I haven't tested it a ton. I've heard from some other people that it's decent but not great. So like it would put the tools on there, but you may need to do a lot of tweaking. So I can't speak too much to that because I haven't tested it, but that is a new feature that is in beta right now for n8n.
Okay, so that could be,
which is cool,
especially for new types of workflow developers. That could be a path for them as they kind of get started on it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it could, especially if you're just even confused, like what tools do I need to use? Like that is a good way to go from like 0 to 50%. Like it's going to put tools on the canvas for you. It's up to you obviously at that point to figure out if they're the right ones and how to use them appropriately, but it's going to try to build your whole workflow for you. So that is worth noting. I think it's in, like I said, it's in beta. I'm sure it will get better. I don't know that it will ever, or at least not in the near future, get to the point where it just builds a bunch of workflows for you and you don't have to do anything. That seems too good to be true.
Yeah.
Update. Yeah. The last thing I was going to say on that, like, I mean, you can, like, if you hit this little plus button here, you basically just add tools this way. So you can kind of see, like, if I'm not sure if they have Notion, I could just type Notion. Here's the Notion tool. If I click it, here's all the things I can do. It's sort of straightforward in that, in that aspect. But I would say, like, if I'm building for the very first time and I wanted to build something like this, I'm probably going to like the community forums to see if people have comments about like using using a Notion tool or using an AI agent or things like that. But I will say also, if you've used tools like Zapier, Make, Yeah, even to some extent, like Lindy, like that's what a lot of people are using these days. Like it's
Mhm.
not that dissimilar. It's still building an automation, and some of the like fundamentals are basically the same. So I don't think there's that steep of a learning curve if you use other tools like that.
Yep, good point.
Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, and also we have a question from the live stream from Nate, and he's asking how well does n8n play with Microsoft? So a lot of firms do have, both Microsoft big investments, and they also want to see like what can I get if I sidebar that with investments in ChatGPT and Claude, and now an automation platform like n8n. So in your opinion, how well does it tool with the different Microsoft? So yeah, we have SharePoint.
Yeah. So I would say this is sort of a loaded question, I think, but I would say about as well as the other automation tools do. So if you've used other ones, I don't think there's nothing about n8n that would make it work worse than like Zapier, for example. I think, I mean, this is my opinion. I'm curious if you have other thoughts, Sean, but like Microsoft itself is sort of hard to use with automations, and it certainly can be done. Like, I mean, I've built a bunch of things with SharePoint and Teams and things like that, but it's not as conducive to building automations with third-party software as some other tools. So that is the one aspect of Power Automate that is nice, is it obviously is within the Microsoft umbrella. So certain things in there might be a little bit easier, but I mean, for example, like, I mean, I can hook up the SharePoint in here and I can grab files, I can find files, I can, I can even like hook up this SharePoint tool to my AI agent right here and have it access certain files in SharePoint. So it's, I mean, it plays nicely from that standpoint, at least.
That's great. Well, and one of the big deficiencies with the native Power Stack in Microsoft that a lot of my firms have found is essentially that initial prompt and initial trigger from the form, for example. Like Microsoft forms are very simplistic, very little branching, and then if you roll into like a Power Apps style form, there's more capabilities there, but it's also just as robust as doing it all right here. If you are building different things, and with n8n, you can connect to any type of form tool for data ingestion across the board. In fact, you can do multiple if you want. So that's, I think, one of the big deficiencies with Microsoft is they have kind of like these tiers of complexity, and then to get up into that higher complex round, it's whole different pricing, whole different training, and it's all within Microsoft. Whereas with n8n, I think it's a much more inclusive and interoperable focused piece that you don't have to continue to then go up a scale to actually get what you need to be done. So that's like, especially on stuff like for a CPA firm and doing client onboarding, we have all these different services and all these different types of, pieces of databases that need to be seeded. That is a heavily branched type of form that a lot of firms just cannot do with the native Microsoft tools. So it's a big problem.
Yeah. Yep. Completely agree. Yeah. And I think, I mean, it's worth noting because, especially because of this question, like you're not always, when you're building an automation like this or an AI automation, like it's not always going to be perfect. Like, and I guess what I mean by that is it's not always going to be fully automated to some extent, right? Like, especially if I'm working with a software that doesn't have an API, like maybe my workaround is I just have a form where I copy and paste certain data from that software into a form and submit the form. And then that form triggers my automation. So maybe there's still something manual involved there. And, the same could be said for lots of other types of workflows as well. I think, if you're finding difficulty with something that's in the Microsoft umbrella, there are creative ways to like figure out how to get that data out of the Microsoft umbrella into something like n8n, whether that's a form, whether that's some like one manual step that you weren't doing previously, but that automates a lot of other things down the line. I think, it would be wrong of us to just tell people like, oh, you can go from 0 to 100 instantly with an n8n automation. Like sometimes there are workflows where there are manual things involved, and a lot of times there's workflows where you want human in the loop, obviously. Most workflows, I would say. So
yeah, especially with all the different approvals that might be necessary to move to the next node, right? So like even with this example, you could build a review human in the loop approval node within each step to like review the email draft, review the results of the perplexity search. All of those things can be segmented out so that you have those little pieces in between, and you can put that similar PII style umbrella node so that it can scrape anything to make sure that there's nothing sensitive being leaked out in between each node too.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, like that's a great example. Like one simple way, and I mean, I'm not saying this is like the best way to do it, but one simple way, like you can just set a node here that's like, if I got a bunch of stuff, a Gmail is a bad example because I want to pass all of my email contents, but maybe I got like a full form worth of data and it had some, sensitive data in there. I could set a field here. Yeah, exactly. I could set a field here that's like only pass through the rest of this data to the AI agent so that you're not sending the sensitive data into the AI model. So you could set here, like you can tell which fields you want. So I only want this one and these, something like that. And like I said, I mean, n8n is secure. So like the rest of the data that's sitting in there is not going to, you should feel as comfortable about n8n with that data as you would any other software that you're using. So
great point.
I think this is one example of like building the full workflow in n8n. I think did that kind of make sense?
Totally.
Sean, I don't know if anyone else had questions or anything.
Yep, that was it for now. So yeah, I think keep rolling with it. You want to the next example.
Yeah. So again, keeping this same workflow in mind, I want to flip over to an MCP server. So this is I'm going to equate this to the Zapier MCP. Like both of these, you can think about the same way. What we're trying to accomplish with a Zapier MCP or this n8n MCP server is I want to give access to specific tools that accomplish specific things. So for my workflow that I built in that last example, trying to illustrate how it could be done via MCP, I'm giving an MCP server access to perplexity search, which is pretty much the exact same thing I had in that last AI agent. I'm giving it access to Gmail to get an email. So like go find an email in my Gmail account. I'm giving it access to draft an email in my account. And then I'm giving it access to the business context and writing style Google Docs that I also had in my last AI agent. And so now I've basically taken that AI agent that I had previously and I've turned it into an MCP server. Some people might watch this and say, what's the point of this if you just did it in n8n? There is no point. This is a demo. Like I wouldn't really recommend doing this because I'm basically just taking what I built in n8n and moving it out into OpenAI agent kit. Maybe there's certain reasons people would want to do that, but really I wouldn't do this in a normal case. But I just want to highlight this MCP server trigger here. I'm going to now go into Agent Builder, and I've already set this up, so I don't want to talk through all of the specifics of setting it up, but it's actually super easy right now for a custom MCP. So you'll see here, I already have it connected. This is that MCP server I just showed you. So you can see the same tools, the writing style, business context, draft email, get email, perplexity search, exactly what I just had. All I did to do this was click tools, click MCP server, and then I click on this plus server. I'll talk about this screen in a second, but this is adding a custom server. So I've basically just taken my n8n MCP, hooked it up with OpenAI's Agent Builder. It's super simple. You can do this with the Zapier MCP as well. That's the other thing I wanted to highlight. And then I think you were talking about this earlier, Sean, like there are native MCP integrations here. So like, for example, you have a Gmail MCP, Google Calendar, Drive, SharePoint is in here, which is cool. All these are like quote unquote native, I guess, to the agent builder. But just to say, like, if you had, like, I mean, for example, Perplexity is not in there, but I added it in there with my custom server. So, you can get other stuff in there too.
Yeah. And one of the big advantages for those of you who have not yet started testing or really taken the deep dive into MCP, again, this is modal context protocol. You can actually combine, like, really there's no limit for a lot of these servers right now, right? You can add in multiple connections, and that can be your way to bring in many of the non-native pieces. There's I get technically a limit on a lot of the servers and how they run, and some of them, like Microsoft, still runs in a self-hosted platform. Zapier is a full serverless. I believe n8n is serverless. Is that correct?
Yep.
You don't have to add anything hosted. So there's a lot of capability here. And one of the coolest things that I've seen is, like, a lot of those nodes that you do see can all be wrapped up in a bow and put into an MCP server if you just need to trigger those, and it's going to be a very consistent style of node trigger that doesn't require a lot of customization. So that can be one way that an MCP can just save a lot of time and potentially some cash on the backside, because you're optimizing those types of connections in one wrapper.
Yep. Completely agreed. Yeah. So I guess the other thing that I need to highlight here is I still have to put in instructions. Like, I have to tell it, here are the tools, use them for these specific use cases. So this is very similar to what I did in the AI agent tool in my n8n workflow. So it's not like it's some unbelievable workaround or anything like that. You still kind of have to tell it what it has access to and what it can do. But just to show, like, there's another way to do this stuff. I do want to, like, hopefully my live test won't just completely screw me here, but let's see if it'll work. So this should really know, based on my instructions, unless I did a bad job in the instructions, it should know what to do here. So I'm saying, I mean, this is a bad example. I know I sent the email to myself, so I'm just saying to grab my last email. I mean, this could be a chat that's like, hey, did anyone email me in the last day about whatever? So you'll see here, again, this is just a preview. It's not live, but this is saying, okay, I need access to grab this email to the get email node in the MCP. So I'm going to say approve. It might work. I've seen in my testing, I've seen sometimes it doesn't work the first time. Looks like it did. So sometimes it might be like, oh, hey, I ran into an error. Let me try this method, and you have to approve it again. Yeah, so some of it is still a little bit buggy, and then this isn't necessarily an OpenAI issue. Some of it's just like MCP in general. I think we're all still trying to figure out the best ways to prompt things and, like, give access to it.
And it's not a foolproof technology yet. If you're doing MCP, which is one of the other nice things about n8n, is that you don't have to rely on MCP to get a lot of these things together. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a great point, because this is like, I'm relying entirely on my simple instructions to an AI agent to go do all of these things correctly. And maybe it's just me, but I am, like, less inclined to do that than just, like, here is a node, let me put it on my canvas in n8n, and I know it's going to run the exact same every single time, and to a certain extent, like, an AI agent in n8n, like an AI agent node, it still has the same similar issues, right? Like, I don't know if it's going to run perfectly every single time, but at least so it looks like it's asking to do research again, so maybe it didn't work or it needs more info. But yeah, at least, like, in the n8n piece, I think just using one AI agent, I feel more confident in that rather than having an agent that has access to 5 tools trying to do all of these things at once.
Yep, exactly. More segmented, more controls, more ability to add that human in the loop. Whereas, again, if you're using this particularly for chat assistance to start, that's probably still one of the best use cases to get your hands around different flows that could lead to more efficient chat assistant with the chat kit. But doing hardcore business level workflows, it's just not quite there yet, even though OpenAI has been showing us that they can innovate quite quickly on a lot of these platforms. So it could be there, by the end of November, essentially. We're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. This is a great example. Like in my one test before this, it worked perfect, and now it's taking a million years. So, it's not foolproof.
Yeah.
I'll flip over to, here, I actually did it. So,
okay, cool.
I would just approve this. This actually has access to that MCP tool to draft an email in my Gmail. So this should theoretically, well, it said error, but theoretically it should have worked. It did in my other tests. So again, this goes back to the piece where it's not foolproof right now. Sometimes there are issues. I don't know off the top of my head if this was an agent builder issue or just an AI issue. So that would be something I would look at in testing, right?
Yeah. Evaluations can sometimes help when you run that, just to understand where did the failure occur. And to your earlier point, that's also where it's a little bit limited right now on the agent kit, because you can't do some of that heavy level logging, that heavy level cost analysis in an easy way. It's just not on this canvas like it is on n8n.
Yep. Yeah, good point. Yeah, you just look here, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but reviewing this and seeing if things worked is just a lot messier than what I was looking at in n8n, where it's just like, let me look at my execution and see all the things that happened, right? Yep. Like I see everything, I see all the logs and all that stuff. So yeah, not as clean, but it should have gotten me the same result if I just fixed this one issue. So
exactly,
that's the MCP piece. The last thing I want to show, I won't go too far into the weeds here because it's doing the same thing, but what you'll see is I built this from start to finish in the agent builder canvas instead of using any MCP from n8n. I basically built it all here. So this is now a Gmail agent that has access to my Gmail account. So I basically added if I go into the tools here and MCP server, I did this. So I clicked this Gmail server, I gave it access to my Gmail API. So now the purpose of this agent is to grab the email. So when I do a chat, this is going to run, and I'll try to show this in a second. Hopefully this one will work. So that Gmail agent grabs the email. It then sends that information to my tasks agent, which if you remember back to my n8n workflow, this was logging tasks that go into my Notion database. So this is supposed to be extracting tasks from that email. So it understands in the instructions, it needs to create tasks. The one thing I'll note as kind of a downside right now to AgentKit, or I guess another thing I'll note, is the formatting coming out of these agents is not super clean. Like n8n, for example, you can tell it in the prompt and in a tool. Let me actually flip back. Like there's a structured output parser tool that says, here is the exact format you need to output, and it sends that back to my AI agent. So the agent knows when I output something, it must look exactly like this. They're trying to do that same thing in AgentKit with this output format, and there's like a response schema. You fill it out here. It's not as good, at least right now. I tried to get it to where the agent could decide how many tasks it needed to output, whether it's 2 tasks, 6 tasks, whatever. I couldn't get it to work. Maybe I need more time to figure that out. But at least on the surface, it seems much more difficult. So I had to tell it just do 1 task.
And maybe more community code that helps, clean that part of it up, right? So
yeah, exactly. So that's kind of the telling the agent what the output should be is kind of at least for me, a note that I made about where this might be lacking currently. And then, so the last piece is the research. So it's going to have access to scrape the web, and then it's going to create a draft email here. So I actually think we're running out of time. I won't demo this one, but it's basically the same thing, right? You go here, you prompt it, and it should run each of these agents, and each of them should do their own specific tasks.
I think that type of use case is so critical for a lot of companies of all sizes, because we still have the fallacy that, hey, I should just spend all day monitoring email and then manually parsing out to-dos or all my transcripts from my meetings I was on all day. So think about this next gen in 2026 of your firm, that you can use these types of workflows to basically monitor your email, monitor your messaging, monitor your meeting transcripts across your whole organization, and be able to consolidate that information. That is where most of these firms are now going. So if you're going to be competitive, you have to actually start thinking like this. So it's a great example, Preston. I think that a lot of companies want, but they just don't know how to get there yet. So I think we've done a good job of showcasing that between the two platforms, and how n8n is still quite a bit ahead and could stay quite a bit ahead in this particular style of use case. So it's a great example.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, just to kind of wrap everything up, I think in this example, you can build both of these workflows in. You could do it in n8n, you could do it in the agent builder, whether it's via the MCP or just like I built right here. The reality is, like, how well does it work? And that's kind of, I think, where Sean and I are kind of saying n8n is, at least at this point, far superior. I'm sure OpenAI will make updates, get feedback, and make this better. But yeah, you can build them both.
Yes, you can do both, and we'd love to hear your feedback. So if you have made it this far into the video, thanks for the comments so far. But if you do want to share more of your thoughts and your questions with us, you can reach out to Preston. His contact information is on his LinkedIn. You can also reach out to me in the same way. We love doing these videos. And for our next series, we're talking about doing a little bit of a more granular cost benefit analysis on different types of workflows, because that's the other answer that a lot of firms and businesses are seeking. It's like, well, if I do go whole hog here and actually build out my whole core business process on n8n or AgentKit or Microsoft, what are the actual costs? What does this look like aside from just a starting cost? And we really want to be able to dig deeper into that as well with you. So be on the lookout for that. More LinkedIn Lives, more YouTube Lives coming. And please give us a feedback, because we really like to hear from you guys as well. Preston, any final thoughts or comments?
I think you summed it up really well. I mean, the only thing I would add is if anyone else is using OpenAI's agent builder or even n8n, and they have thoughts on any of this stuff too, I mean, send that. I'm always trying to test some things and see what cool new things I can learn on them. So yeah, if anyone else has done stuff like this, send it our way.
Absolutely. We love building the community, just like Preston was talking about. So please have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next time. Thanks a lot, everybody.